Hello, and welcome to Ditch Rich Diaries. Today is really special because we have a friend with us today who's going to give us a huge presentation on baneful gardens and poison gardens, and I am so excited to turn the reins over to Jen. So if you want to introduce yourself and say hi, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Jenn Gunn. I am an artist and a lover of all things weird, especially like weird historical occult effects, and poison gardens and poisony things are right in that like Venn diagram of weird shit I love.
Perfect. Me too. Interestingly enough.
Well, I find it, and Bane or poison gardens are actually sort of a misnomer because there's always poisonous plants in your garden. Like there's always going to be poisonous flowers, but this is a particular area you set aside just to grow your nastiest plants, your wild ones that need their little jail cell.
Very nice. So if you want me to start the share, I'm going to start it right now.
That would
And
be perfect. We can talk about
yes,
some of. I love me some pre-Raphaelite paintings of women poisoning,
I love that too. I love
and
it.
I love you can see the lovers in the background, but that woman knows. She knows what's coming next.
Oh yeah, I could almost see it being Cersei, like looking on, like that's how she got banished to the island of Aiea for poisoning the man, and the one she turned the woman into a sea monster. She turned Scylla into the sea monstrous.
What do they call poisons? The gentle art.
Exactly. Okay.
And it's had a long history with women and basically just oppressed people. Anyone who's oppressed loved growing a poison garden historically.
Nice. Okay.
But why did they keep poison gardens? This is an example of this is Blarney Castle's poison garden,
Oof.
which I love. Children must be accompanied. Don't eat, smell anything. I love people pass out just walking around there.
Oh, that's great.
But there are many reasons why people used to keep them. It's a pharmacon, remedy and poison in Greek. It's the same thing. It's all about dosages. Like Foxglove, digitalis, a small amount will heal your heart, a bigger amount will kill a bad husband, which is the second reason most women used to keep poison gardens for abusive partners. There was no legal divorce. There was no way to get out of, or abusive parents. There are cases of patricide with it. And that was a pretty classic one. Abortification, birth control. It was a way for women to take control of their bodies. It was a way to decide when and how they were going to give birth. A classic is black coash, blue coash, and then blue tansy mixed together. They're very precise, though, the abortificants. So that's why those recipes were so important. Like apothecaries often used to have them. But I have a source in there, too, that actually has modern ones with the chemistry and the actual measurements and the dosages. But that is all needs to be studied very carefully.
Well, I will tell
Sorry.
you something. We take note of when we hit an herb and it is like it causes uterine contractions and it says don't take during pregnancy. We note it and we say, listen, women, this is a noted one, because at we don't suggest that people start doing this necessarily on their own, because there's
Oh, never.
definitely,
Painful. It
yeah,
is very painful. If you read all the descriptions, it is, and it takes days and different dosages for different days to make sure you expunge it all. It's
yes.
a
And
it's a journey.
yes, you need to be consulting a midwife or a traditional healer if you are, because there's parts of our country now where we need to start learning about how to take our bodies back. And geez, you know what? The worst thing I can tell you is that we're going back into the years of women dying in the back of alleys from dirty, botched abortions. And so I just think that women and natural healers, we have to like figure this all out. And part of them is taking note of these abortifacients in our herbal studies.
And it's interesting. There's a study at the end of this I have that's from an Asian chemist who wrote down all the historical ones and how they reacted with rats, because they're not allowed to say how they reacted to people. but it's the most accurate measurements I've found so far with instructions.
Interesting.
But I do not recommend it at home, but just so we all know it's out there.
Exactly. Just as an educational reference.
Historical facts.
Yes.
It was also used to kill off vermin, parasites. Like, let's say you had lice, you had worms in you, you could use poisons to poison them out of you.
Yes.
And also to kill villains, to ascend the throne. It was common, poison arrows, poison meat you leave behind for the enemy. And it was an easy way out with suicide. People often wanted to grow their own hemlock in water to make sure that, when you take that suicide dose, it's exact. Yes. For if you're living in the Roman days and you're giving your best Socrates life. And also Beauty. Catherine de' Medici, who is a famous poisoner, maybe, depending on whose historical accounts you read, either had a beautiful perfume garden or a crazy poison garden. Because it had Monkshood, Datura, Bella Donna, Mandrake, water hemlock, foxglove, and Oleander.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Which I say is probably a poison garden.
Sounds like a poison garden to me.
But it could also probably make a good perfume.
Some of those, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
But these are, and just to collect them all because poisonous plants are gorgeous.
So Medici's Perfume Garden. Wait, there was a herb that we talked about. I think it was jasmine that was kept in, I believe it is, but don't hold me to it. But in one of our past ones where Medici tried to stop it from getting out into the like wanted to hoard it as a scent. Like so that the common people couldn't get it out. And one of the gardeners actually got it out into Italy. Like, I believe it was jasmine, but it may have been something else. I don't know.
I could see that. I would definitely watch soap operas about the Medicis.
Yes. Okay.
They were wild.
Yes.
But Lucretia Borgia, again, someone who poisoned possibly abusive partners. But there's a long history of them.
Yes.
Who keeps and keeps poison gardens to this day? Nobility, aristocracy. For example, Blarney Castle, which we just saw. Alnwick Garden. The Medici ones. You needed a lot of land, and what I thought was cute is I found in some old medieval texts they referred to their gardens as arsenals.
Oh, wow, that's awesome! I love that.
And the best description I heard for poisoning was someone soaked the edges of their famous books in poison.
Oh.
So that if a person read them and got a paper cut, they'd die from it. So they'd lend the books out to people they were trying to assassinate.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I'm pretty sure it was Foxglove, I think, because it described them as having a purple tongue afterwards. I think also the idea was that they cut their finger and suck at their finger in their mouth.
Yeah. I think that Kew Gardens is, because we're going to talk about it again, I think that has a lot of, I know they have carnivorous plants. I believe they also have a huge poison garden as well.
They are fun to look at. I love it because every time and trying to figure out which ones work together. If you study alchemy, there's a lot of plants in alchemy, and apothecaries, obviously, for tinctures, salves, all of those. A side group that I found very interesting was enslaved people. Coming through the Caribbean to the south, brought oleander with them, and there's actually a famous thing I'll get to in a little bit in this. And it helped that they used it as an abortive. There's a case of the Memphis plantation where they had 60 female slaves, but not one birth in 5 years.
I wonder why that was. Exactly. I love that.
There. But I love it because there's so many letters going back and forth between the plantation owner demanding that they have babies, them going, we're trying, it's just not working.
That's great.
So Bane Gardens, in my mind, have been a way for a lot of people to control their own destinies, even when a lot of other things have been taken away. That plant, that connecting with Earth is a way to protect us or help us define who we are. like with artists and writers, it inspires us. This one right here is the oleander,
Hmm.
the painting.
Yes.
And see, she's sniffing the oleander, and she's most likely preparing to poison someone she cares about. Probably on the deck out there with the other person.
Probably.
But so inspires stories, it's creative. Women to poison husbands they couldn't divorce. And gardeners who just enjoy toxic plants and wearing gloves while they garden.
Hmm.
Because if you like these plants, you cannot touch them. You
Yeah.
can't connect with them like other plants where you can tap them occasionally.
No.
It's like dating in the 80s. You got to wear gloves. It reminds me of being in San Francisco in the 80s to 90s. You have to cover up if you're going to go out with some of them. You
Exactly.
don't know their history. They're toxic.
Toxic.
They've had
Exactly.
bad relationships. They're bringing that with them.
Exactly.
And the damage they do might appear 20 years later. So for enslaved people, in fact, this is a modern version of a historic Virginia Smithfield slave garden.
Mm.
So they would work on they would be given Saturdays if their owner was nice to grow their own food. And with that own food and with the yams, they brought African plants, vines. They would bring in poisonous plants too to keep animals away from their food. They grow castor beans to poison gophers.
I'm
But
listening. Grab this.
also, they would use it to protect themselves with the abortives.
Hmm.
And they've also had that sculpture right there. The woman is named Miss Bassett, and
Yep.
she had. Do you know the story of Sally Bassett?
No, tell me,
Sally or Sarah.
Sarah.
She was accused of poisoning her white slave owners who beat her and raped her with oleander. And there was a woman and two children. And when they found this out, they took her to a crossroad and burned her
Wow.
and left her there. But people went and said peace, and they remembered her and loved her because she was a herbal woman. She knew remedies, and with her was a great loss.
Yeah.
But to this day, they have statues to her, and we still not quite sure what her name is.
Huh.
Because in some of the work I saw Sally, some I saw Sal Raha, and some I saw Sala.
Interesting.
But I do know it was Miss Bassett. The last name is Garrett is all agreed upon. It's the first name we're not quite sure about, but that is a beautiful sculpture of her in her final moments. But
What that's like that Dr. Caesar that we talked about in the last one too, who because the slave owners were often it was like a common fear, and now we know why, like for slave owners to have a fear of being poisoned by their slaves. And so Dr. Caesar was the first African American, but he was a slave who was given his freedom because he had a a remedy that was to for poisons that was horehound and plantain. And so it becomes very apparent why that might be a worry.
well, I like there's a quote in this from a female that wrote this wonderful article that it's the end of this if you want to check it out. That's all about Sally Bassett.
Okay.
And she put that the biological and social reproduction of enslaved humans, women therefore turned to other means of resistance like conjuring, particularly poisoning, to avenge their enslavement and seek justice. Men resist, women avenge.
I love that. That's great.
The idea of this poor woman being burnt at a crossroad is in chains. The description is so brutal.
It's so
But
gross.
it's like it makes me think of Hecate. Like maybe Hecate was there for her,
Exactly.
or
I can think
hopefully
of
some.
yes, exactly. I can think of many people who were there for her, you know. Geez, that's many goddesses that were there for her. That is a horrific story. That is unfortunately probably not as uncommon as we would hope to think. So
Now, if you just look up enslaved people and oleander poisoning, there's a whole history of it. It's not unfortunate they were poisoning. It's unfortunate they kept getting caught.
exactly. It's unfortunate.
Let me be clear.
But what was unfortunate was that they were being burned at crossroads. That was the unfortunate part. Exactly. Whoever was being poisoned at that point got whatever they deserved. My gosh.
Yeah. They died. Maybe they had seizures and some diarrhea. I mean,
Hopefully, it
back
was
then
the
people were
worst
dying
death
of stuff
ever.
anyway. Yeah. I love this painting. It's called The Unhappy Bride.
Huh.
Look
Interesting.
at how young and that's her husband. And right next to him is the ghost of his former wife.
Oh,
And
how
the
fun
painter's
for her.
behind them judging it, going like, this is so wrong.
It is so wrong. Oh,
Because she was being married off to pay debts. This is a Russian painting. No one can do misery like Russian paintings. Like, look at the lighting. He's so excited to get
well,
on
you
with
read
the
the great literature, the
bride.
great Russian literature lately. Who like read you some Tolstoy,
It's so cheerful.
some Gulag writings?
But they perfected the sorrowful, and these paintings actually led to people taking divorce more seriously and thinking about the woman's perspective. But before that, you had a bunch of women being forced to marry old men who were abusive to them.
Mm,
So often they'd come to their new house with poisonous plants.
mm.
Maybe their mom taught him some tips. Maybe over a couple months, he gets more and more sick and eventually passes. He was old anyway. But we see that kind of pattern playing out historically too with these Bane gardens, how they came in to create where there was this unequal power, and it was this way to kind of bring that power back up a little bit
Yeah,
in a very brutal way.
very brutal.
And the classic apothecaries, alchemists, perfumeries. Back in the day, you didn't have your average CVS you could go to and get medication or perfume or makeup. So you'd often go to people who sold them, like in Italy, Giuliani, for the famous female poisoner who
Ah,
sold love spells, but really it was poison for their husbands.
hmm.
But there were a lot of cases of women going to get classic face creams.
Yes, yes, and
It'd be
like
sold as a face cream, but really it was a poison or a way to get rid of children or whatever was in your way from your happiest life.
exactly.
And there'd be coded language on it like to kill the wrinkles away, or there's always that little note you're like, oh, deadly if eaten 3 times in a row.
Is it well there's a lot of perfumes and even into the early 1900s where they were like they had lead in them and arsenic in them and like in the
Mercury.
lightning creams would have like like horrible things in them, all sorts of things that we didn't really.
Well, that lead mercury burning the holes in the face,
Oh
then
yeah.
having belt bits on to cover them.
Yes.
But we probably do that now and we just have no idea.
I know.
The classic murder by poison was the most popular form of assassination in medieval times.
Oh wow.
So often people would send in female family members to take out other families because it would be assumed that it's a marriage of strengthening a power relationship when it could be a way to take out another family.
That's not that's like the one from our that I was trying to, you know what, I missed the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones for some reason. It just something happened and during that time I don't know what it was, but I just didn't see
You were
them.
saving yourself.
What?
You were saving yourself the heartache of them.
That's well, that's true. Like I was did not want to see what well, then now I'm watching it. I go back and watch it and yeah, poisons so there was a reminder of Joffrey was poisoned and then his grandmother who or his not his grandmother, the grandmother of the
Elena
yeah,
Tyrell.
No, it's it wasn't was it the
Martell.
yeah, Martell or
Martell
yeah, something like that. Anyway, she's
of
a
High Garden.
grandmother who poisoned Joffrey, then took poison herself. Sorry if you haven't seen it. I'm a little late to the game, so I don't think I'm spoiling it for anybody. But
Spoiler
poison,
for history.
exactly. Spoiler alert for Game of Thrones from like years ago. Like
People die from poison. I think that's the smallest spoiler from it, though, honestly.
exactly. People die from poison.
Pretty gently, honestly.
I know. Although that Joffrey death was pretty horrific looking. I can
Mm-hmm.
almost picture him in there.
Yeah, with the strangling vine things.
Yes.
So if you're going to cultivate a poison garden or a bane garden, that was another name for it, which I think is cute, a bane garden.
Yes.
It's not recommended for households with small children that would wander in and climb and touch things, or if you have curious pets that will eat them. I have a lazy fat chihuahua and he doesn't bother my stuff. But for a while when I had puppies, I had chicken wire around an old table flipped up to keep mine in. So
Wow.
just want,
Yeah.
and then a little sign up is usually a good idea to warn people coming, like, don't touch these plants.
I'm
They
looking
will
and
hurt
I'm
you.
looking at your picture. I'm trying to like zoom in. I'm like, what have I got encaged over here? I'm like,
Right there, that is from Alnwick Castle. That's Mandragora,
yep, I see that.
European Mandrake,
Yeah.
and I think I do not know it's back in the front's Gimpy Gimpy.
Oh, nice.
The plant's so painful it will make you kill yourself or wish you're dead.
Oh gosh.
That's one of my that's a hard look at the equipment you have to touch that. That you
Yeah,
should never grow in your house or anywhere near it. That you should go visit on a tourist vacation.
exactly. Because we take
Having-
vacations like this, only us.
yeah, it's like having a cobra in your house. You don't need one.
No.
Just the mildly poisonous snakes, not the real vicious ones.
Exactly.
You want the ones you can take Epicac, throw up, and be okay from.
Exactly. Not the mushrooms that you will for sure die in 3 days viciously and horribly. Kill yourself now to avoid the painful death that you're going to have to endure.
Well, I remember hearing about German settlers. They mistook the jaguar mushrooms. They're red and white, and you'll die within an hour horrifically.
Ugh, that's horrible.
Ones from their home place, so they'd find just these empty campsites of dead Germans.
Yeah.
Immigrants who had no idea.
I bet. I bet.
So while you're cultivating your poison garden, you want to pick them. It's a lot of research, but if you are doing that, you're doing the research right there. What were you just talking about?
Giant
Hogsweed.
hogweed.
He's brave enough to clip it with so much protection on. So also you want to figure out what kind of plant friends you're willing to work with. Are you willing to work with an angry kitteny kind of plant like foxglove? It's not too bad. Or like a starving tiger, like a gimpy gimpy energy, that you have to be covered head to toe and you can never have your guard down around it. You have to watch who goes near it.
I love that. Exactly.
That's how much energy do you have to deal with these plant friends?
Exactly. We have oleander everywhere, so I'm sure you'll talk about it more. But yeah, there's lots of oleander. So that is an angry kitten. We have.
It's one of those ones that, yeah, well, they put it alongside all of the freeways. It's all over here.
Yeah.
There's that good book and movie, White Oleander,
Oh yeah. Oh
where
yeah.
I think she poisoned her poet boyfriend with it. Poisoned him with oleander.
Yep.
Sometimes the poisoners are the bad guys.
Occasionally so.
Occasionally. Not always. There are a lot of heroes too, but they can be the bad guys.
So what are the most common poison garden plants? Do you know?
Oh yeah, keep going.
Oh, there we go.
We'll start with the first one, the queen of the garden. I feel like a poison garden isn't a poison garden without Bella Donna or Deadly Nightshade.
Nice.
Because she is the queen of poisons.
Look at her. Look at how beautiful she is. Those little black berries and those delicate little flowers. Wow.
I mean, there's a poet to her, glad in purple and gold, so fair through the deadly nightshades upon her.
Ooh.
People are doing crazy awesome stuff. And I love that modern picture of someone with nightshade eye to show how big the pupil is. That's a blue eye.
That's crazy. Yep, I see.
But I love Belladonna was also known as strawberry flavored death. How fun is that? What a great name. It's also known as devil's cherry. I love those side names.
Me too. I love those.
You'll notice a lot of them have devil's cherry, devil's apple, mandrake, devil's apple.
Yep.
So for a good poison garden, you want to have a lot of different devil fruit. This covers your devil cherry. It's a beautiful plant. It's one of the ones that you want to keep some sort of cage around to catch the berries
Mm-hmm.
because dogs will be interested in them.
Oh yeah. And also, well, yeah, there's
But it
some.
does other rabbits.
Oh,
Rabbits can enjoy them, and so can cattle.
nice.
So it's one of those ones that if you have rabbits, it's an okay one to have in your backyard and it won't bother them. But
Good.
dogs or cats, yeah. It only takes 2 to 5 berries to kill for a child to die, and 10 to 20 for an adult.
Oh,
Although in 2009, a woman was collecting them and mistook them for blueberries and ate 6 and died from them.
oh my gosh.
So maybe she was just sensitive to them. I don't know, but it's good to keep in mind.
Yes.
I like checking to see if people are dying from them just to make sure, you know. But Belladonna, surprisingly, not that many people die from it. They seem to keep Deadly Nightshade pretty well. I think it's a pretty good garden one. But
Yeah,
I would a cage. I like chicken wire around it,
I use that a lot. I use the even finer chicken wire, like that really like braided wire. I use that for everything, I feel like.
or I'll double it up
Yeah,
if it's if I get we're getting into some of the more toxic ones that
for sure.
could be an issue.
For
But
sure.
I love Belladonna. I think it's fun. It's hard. You do have to order it or go to volunteer at a garden or someplace. It's not as common here as it is like on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
But
There you go.
yeah, I love Belladonna. If you just look it up historically, the amount of poisons it was used for, it used to be used for a formula called Lilliputian sleep for when
Oh,
women gave birth. And there are these famous postcards of pregnant women with belladonna berry crowns on their head,
oh wow.
showing that it was mixed with opium.
Well,
As belladonna and opium was called Lilliputian sleep, and it actually caused a lot of damage because they had to take the baby out with forceps because the woman would be knocked out completely.
you think?
But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
but the thing was, you'd take the Lilliputian sleep, and you'd wake up, and there would be your baby, and it was
Exactly.
and the woman would be relaxed, have a crown on her head, and everything went well. And
That's yeah,
but
remember that
probably
happened also in up until we did that to women even in the 1950s and 40s. We'll just knock them out and remove the baby and they'll wake up and be like,
yes,
oh.
I miss those times, but hey, they'll figure it out. But I was gonna say that Belladonna is the Solanaceae family
Uh-huh.
or the Nightshade order.
Okay.
And a lot of the things you see in your Bane garden are from that family. The Nightshade, there's like Mandrake, Tobacco, Datura, Belladonna. And also, you usually keep other ones in your garden like potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, chili peppers.
Yep. I've got a bunch of nightshades going right now, but
Like,
not
and
deadly ones.
what's interesting is if you have fibromyalgia or any inflammatory disease, you're not supposed to have anything from the Nightshade family.
Oh, good to know. Very good.
Because I had to give up potatoes and tomatoes because of that, and it really bummed me out.
Oh,
But
that
I
is
do feel way better, so it's worth it.
good.
And you have yams.
Yams are worth it. Yams are yum. I love yams.
Exactly. I would not plant yams. The leaves can be poisonous. Anything can be poisonous if you're creative enough.
Exactly.
But you can go to the next
Okay.
classic one, Foxglove. Like I said before, it's the classic for Agatha Christie books. She loved them because it's that classic. Because we still use it for digitalis. Look, you can even see the poison and how it's used as a digitoxin. They actually test for one of the chemicals in blood when people are having heart issues. So it's basically just a heart medication.
Nice.
I definitely
Beautiful.
I touch it with my bare hands. I know you're not supposed to, but I don't touch it. I cut it and then put it in a vase.
I was at a Vista Garden Club. We had a show and sale, and people brought in Foxglove, and people were touching it with their hands. So
Yeah, I saw in a couple of the gardening books, they're like, don't touch it with bare hands. And I'm like, ooh, I have for quite a while.
I think there's another one. There's a couple that you're not supposed to touch with your hands, but I think you can with this.
Yeah, I have. I know you're not supposed to. I like that butterflies love it.
Yep.
And what is a which is like witchy bane poisonous garden without mandrake, mandragora? I love the mandragora part, right?
That's all I can think of. I'm sorry. I know there's some people that are so like infuriated by that, but I just have to say I can't imagine, like every time I can just imagine like somebody holding exactly squealing.
Exactly. Although I knew mandrake before that because I remember the putting it under the bed
Uh-huh.
to take your illness away,
Oh yeah.
and then you bury it outside with the illness you had.
Hmm.
That's a classic, like rube artwork. And
Yeah.
then you carve your name on it, you wrap your hair around it, the old root work.
Yes.
But for poison gardens, it was usually kept for the hallucinogenic purposes, from what I was reading, for that hypnotic hallucinogenic effect. I can't imagine. I think there's better drugs to use
Probably so.
for, but all parts are poisonous. If you take enough of it, it can causes asphyxiation as a way to die. So it makes me think of that Prince Joffrey, the choking.
Exactly.
And I love, if you look down at the bottom, those little things are called devil's apples or love apples.
Nice.
Again, you've got the devil's cherry, the devil's apple. You're trying to collect the whole set for your poison garden.
Exactly.
For that proper like hard rock, like, yeah, devil garden. And they're just I think mandrakes are pretty, but usually they don't. Sometimes they grow looking like people. Have you seen the roots?
Yeah, I have. Sometimes they are, but sometimes not. Yeah. They
Yeah,
just
it's rare to find one that looks like.
it
I
is.
can see why that was a prized thing. And also, quite a few of the witch ones I remember reading were like, you have to get a mandrake that grew from the cum of a hanged man.
Oh.
I love that one. At a crossroad, it was a Polish one.
Oh, very interesting.
And I was like, that's so specific. It was right next to one that if you want to become a werewolf, you have to find a fresh wolf paw and drink water out of it and then do 2 backflips.
Oh,
I
well,
love those spells. You're like, wait, you might be able to try that.
exactly. I know.
It seemed like something you could do on a weekend if you got bored.
Exactly. You can go seek that out. You can go.
I think maybe it was like the version of Jackass was trying to find those things to do.
Oh, that's so funny.
Now, this is Oleander, which I love because it makes me think of Miss Bassett and all the people, that used it to help fight for freedom, because it was brought up from Bermuda to the South along with the slave trade. So you see it in a lot of voodoo and witchcraft. You see it in a lot of hoodoo work and just general poisonings for freedom. Every year, 847 people die from oleander poisoning in the United States. It's still a pretty common. I think it's because people don't think it's going to be as poisonous as it is.
And people treat it so lightly. Like nobody knows it's even poisonous. We have this huge oleander bush that was sitting there, and I turned around to one of my friends and I said, "That's poison. Don't let your kids like play around there and touch things and rub their eyes and their face and lick their hands. Like that's oleander." And they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's really, really, really."
You want to be one of the 847?
Exactly. We planted it everywhere
We
in
don't judge
Southern
those
California.
people, but
It's all over.
exactly. And I don't know if you know this, but the smoke from burning oleander can cause fatalities.
Yes, even the smoke, and even if you cook
We have
food in
huge.
the leaves, sometimes that was like one of the ways that like people cook things in the leaves, and then that
Mhm.
they would eat the food and be poisoned. Well,
Yeah. So anytime there's huge fires and you see a ton of oleander bushes burning,
go the other way.
take it aside.
Exactly.
But I do think it's important to honor and grow and to thank Miss Bassett and keep it in the garden for all of those women. I think it's a nice little reminder. Like, no matter where we are, we have power. Don't forget that.
Yes, I love that reminder.
Oh, I love her. Monkshood.
Ah, Aconite.
It's gorgeous. Like just alone for the plant, it's beautiful. The sap is very toxic, especially if you get it in a mucous membrane. Like you get a little on your hand and you wipe your nose, your eye, you're having an instant cardiac arrest.
Yep.
Oh, something I didn't mention about Bella Donna is there are antidotes now.
Oh, good.
There's 2 antidotes for Bella Donna. So a lot of these do not have antidotes though, like Monk's Head, Oleander. I don't know why. They just don't. Monk said there's 250 types. The ornamental type is usually the one you see. If you ingest it, you die 2 to 6 hours later.
Look at how beautiful. No wonder it's called Monkshood. Look at how beautiful those flowers hood are.
Aren't they gorgeous?
Yes.
I would plant some. But to make note, in 2014, one of those gardeners,
Uh-huh.
I want to say it was one of those huge, gorgeous castles had monkshood growing, and the gardener just brushed up against it a couple of times, and he died of multiple organ failure.
Oh, wow.
It is one of those ones. If you brush up against it and you're sensitive,
It's done.
it will. It is one that I would wear gloves around. But it's also called wolfsbane for the very particular reason is they used to use it to poison wolves. If you see like henbane, wolfbane, cowbane, it's because it poisoned that thing.
Exactly.
They're giving you the warning in the name. But this actually, they used it as a way to help poor farmer areas. They find a dead sheep that had been chewed on by some wolves, cover it in dried monk's hood, wolfbane, leave it out for them. They eat that and it'd kill the wolves.
Wow.
So it's also a way to defend your local area was to have these. As late as World War II, German soldiers were using it to poison bullets. In Greece, they used it on arrows. They poisoned water supplies with it. But yeah, it's a pretty deadly one. But yeah, if you love history and poison and weird things like that, Monk's Head's one of those ones that come together. Like a Pokemon, it's one that you want to have in your poison garden. It's one of the big ones.
That's great. And the leaves look very mugworty.
It's very pretty.
It is.
It's not one of the
lovely. Yeah.
It's really, and it's nice if you do that and then put the foxglove in front of it because it's a little bit shorter. So you have this beautiful stepped look with the flowers.
Nice.
If you're growing them together and you're doing it for aesthetics. Water hemlock is really hard to grow unless you have a fountain or some standing water in.
This is the other one that is confused with Daucus carota.
Exactly. You can see it is much smaller.
It's tiny. Yeah.
It's teeny tiny. It looks more like this one I think more would be confused like with carrot or Queen Anne's lace.
Oh yeah, that's what Daucus carota is, Queen Anne's lace. But so Daucus carota is often confused with 2 poisonous plants, hemlock and giant hogsweed. So this is like one of the 2. Interesting.
And this one was a favorite of philosophers and thinking men to die from, free men in Rome. It sounds like a terrible way to die. It's seizures, frothing.
Ugh.
Doesn't sound like a good way to go out, but I'm assuming maybe they mixed it with alcohols and things to make it better. The fresh root is the most dangerous. As it dries, it loses potency and becomes less poisonous. It's called snakeweed because it grows among water, with fresh snakes. Children's bane, because apparently children died from it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got the cytotoxins. I like that one of the names for its death of man.
Well, it's appropriate, that's for sure.
It's an appropriate name, and Socrates was one of the most famous consumers of it.
Indeed.
That's actually that they have a thing called a hemlock cup in Rome for drinking poison.
And there you go.
They liked it. But yeah, if you have if you have standing water and you want to try growing it,
go right.
I've heard if you grow carrot next to it, the 2 can kind of mutate each other.
Oh,
so
really?
I'm careful about that.
Yes. And so you know where I've seen it growing wild here. It grows wild in where we are, and we've hiked.
Yeah,
I've seen it wild at Daily Ranch. I've seen
yeah.
hemlock wild at
I've
Daily.
often debated. I'm like, is it wild carrot or is it water hemlock?
It's
Now
hemlock.
I know.
Yeah, it's hemlock.
But
That's
yeah, because I live someplace really sunny and dry. I don't have a fountain, so I don't grow water hemlock. But I would if I had standing water. I just have to go for a hike and visit it. This is a classic, easy to grow, all around everywhere. Datura,
my favorite. It's my favorite.
Jameson weed, Jamestown weed, moonflower, stinkweed. It has so many names. I knew it in the 90s as Jimson weed because it was kind of a psychonaut thing where people were starting to take it kind of.
Don't do
You
that.
know, when weed was still illegal and people trying to like find cheap highs because
Yeah,
it grows everywhere here.
it does.
And
I
people,
have some in my. I have some right now in my. It grows with the weedy items. It grows in the weeds and on the side of roads and.
the picture back here is it in Joshua Tree.
Oh,
And
nice.
this is something interesting about Datura is the age of it and where it grows depends on how toxic it is.
Really?
The and the kind that grows in Joshua Tree is supposed to be the best for hallucinogenic properties because of the environment is with the middle-aged plants. You don't want a young or really old plant.
Interesting.
So sort of like a second husband. You want a middle-aged.
Not too old, not too young. Exactly.
I was surprised to see that there's meeting groups for people who are addicted to it.
Oh, I did not know that.
I thought in researching, I was surprised because I know it causes olfactory, tactile hallucinations, slight visual, but it's supposed to be very unpleasant.
I thought so too. Like I've heard like there's somebody we know that describes it like as 10,000 spiders or something.
Yeah, it can cause a feeling of electrical shocks because of the nerves it gets going.
Yeah, like so like so we I
I
know.
will neither confirm or deny that I have tried it,
Oh.
but if I were to have said tried it, I would say it was very unpleasant and uncomfortable physical, and it gives you tastes and smells.
Oh,
It
interesting.
activates that part of your brain.
Huh. So
So it's got
interesting. It was
propane, alkaloids. It's got all kinds of weird chemicals in it.
nice.
But
So
yeah, so the classic way is the seed tea with it. That's how people tend to use it.
in it featured in Jane Aull's book series, The Clan of the Cave Bear.
Oh yeah.
It was the root that was pounded and made for the women who like would make okay so the all the medicine women had this knowledge about datura root and they would use it as a hallucinatory for the entire the whatever they were the group their group so
I personally think Blue Lotus is better,
ah, yeah.
but that's not on my list. And these are a list of all the wonderful ones: the Queen of the Poison Garden, Atropa Bella Donna. The Asian Journal of Research and Chemistry is the one that talks about abortificants. Oh,
uh,
that's a hard word, but it's got really good research
nice
coming, and the poison and protest of Sarah Bassett and enslaved women poisoners. That was a really good piece. I'd recommend it.
nice okay. Thank you so much. I learned so much. I love that. That is so rad. And I'm just
I highly recommend a poison garden. It's summer's not too late to start. The tour is easy enough to go out and get. Just wear gloves.
yeah. And or visiting one. I highly recommend just visiting a poison garden. And that was amazing. Thank you so much. I love that.
Oh, and I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
poison gardens are the haunted house for people who are into cottagecore. I had to remember to say that.
I love that quote. Exactly. That's perfect.
At first, I thought kind of making fun of it, but then I was like, no, it totally makes sense because haunted houses are where people have died horribly, but
That's
it's a way
right.
to act with it in a fun level with
Nice.
history.
Good.
So I think it works real well, Morna. I'm
That
down with it.
does. I like that one. Excellent. Okay, well, we will see you at the next Ditch Witch Diaries.